So that's actually your camera, but since we are
That's
having,
actually camera.
that's the camera. But even I'm going to be looking at you. You're going to be looking at me, so it's fine. Sorry, I thought आप मुझे कुछ बोल रहे. Sorry. Renewables, clean energy, and transition to greener economy. That's the focus from the government, and a lot of corporates they are moving towards this transition as well. In that conversation, one word that comes up often is smart meters because there's a thrust from the government in order to use this particular product widely as well across different states and different union territories as well. So while Tata Power is doing a lot in this space, we need to understand how is smart meter really connected to the idea of sustainability and what are the usage of this one. Will it cost you lesser than a regular meter, and what exactly does it mean if you and I use it? To understand this and a lot more, I have with me on the podcast Mr. Sanjay Banga, who is the president of transmission and distribution at Tata Power. Mr. Banga, thank you so much for joining us on the Climate Clock podcast. And I've read this term so many times. I've heard it from people, from the government speeches. For the understanding, can you explain to us what is a smart meter? How does it differ from a regular meter?
So smart meter is a normal electronic meter which you have in your house. It has two components more with as compared to normal electronic meter. One, it has a communication card built into this, and this communication card sends entire data of meter to a control center. So someone need not to go for meter reading, right? So this meter communicate, electronic meter doesn't communicate. That's the first difference. The second difference which is there in this smart meter is it has a switch which you can disconnect from the control center. So virtually this meter becomes like a phone where the telecom operator has a control on your phone. Here the distribution company can have a control on your meter. He can disconnect, and at the same time he can know how much electricity you are consuming. So it's really smart in that way.
And you can keep a tab on how much you're consuming at any point in time.
Absolutely. You will consumer even will be knowing that how much he is consuming, because most of the distribution companies who are installing smart meters, they also give a consumer app. So this data which is coming from a smart meter, they send it back to that consumer app. So the consumer is knowing how much he has consumed 1 hour back, how much he has consumed last day, yesterday, or how much he has consumed last month. Now, once he is knowing this entire consumption pattern, he has a potential to save that energy, and that is where he can contribute to sustainability
It's
also.
like a constant reminder that switch off your fan, switch off your light if
Yeah,
you're leaving a room.
and then you have analytics built on that. Last month how much you have consumed. In fact, it also gives you an information that how much your neighbor is consuming.
Oh, wow.
So you can get a comparative of whether I'm consuming more or I'm consuming less, and if I'm consuming more, there is a scope for reduction of that.
Oh, absolutely. So, is this how we are looking at smart meters when it comes to sustainability? Is this the reason why government is pushing so much for this one?
So government is pushing smart metering because the distribution sector in India is in problem because of the financial stress it has. The cost of supply for a distribution company in India and the revenue we recover for per unit which they sell, there is a gap. They are not getting money for the cost of supply. So government come out with a scheme where they said that all meters in India has to be replaced with the smart meter so that the reading problems are solved. And if consumer is not paying, then the distribution company can disconnect that meter also. So that will bring some kind of a revenue discipline in a distribution company, and their cost of supply and the revenue which they realize will be almost same, and the distribution company will be financially sustainable. The other thing is, once you have this that kind of data available, then you can optimize your capex also. You can also reduce your losses because you are knowing which consumer consumption pattern is how he is consuming. So when you analyze this data, you may know that in this a pocket of your distribution company there are more losses. You can reduce those losses. If you reduce your losses, then of course you become financially more sustainable.
Okay, very interesting. So, what about the consumers? Say, if I put a smart meter in my house, will it cost me lesser than the regular meter?
So normal cost of smart meter is more than electronic meter because it has a component of that switch, it has a component of that communication card. But government has come out with a scheme, and all distribution companies are replacing these meters where this is a part of their yearly capex. The consumer need not to pay any amount for that. It's the regulator who decides. If the regulator said it's a distribution company is part of capex, then it for consumer it's absolutely free.
Okay, so if I come to say a Tata Power and say, please, I need to install smart meter in my house, that would be a part of your capex and not mine.
No, not yours.
Okay, and what happens to the final electricity bill? Is it would be the same, right? It's just the reading
Electricity
that
would be
improves.
same, but since you have a visibility or on consumption pattern, you will be tend to save more. And in fact, in the most advanced utilities, on the basis of the analysis of this data, they in fact tell you which appliance is consuming more. So that give you further insight in your consumption pattern. Once you have that consumption pattern known, you tend to save more energy, and that is how I said you contribute to sustainability also.
Interesting. So, since it looks like a B2C product, right? Many people would not be so aware of the idea of smart meters. What is it looking like in terms of consumption right now? Are people very actively going for it? How, in terms of state contribution, are you looking at this particular product?
So one, the Ministry of Power has given a mandate that all meters have to be smart meters. So this transition is very similar to, again I come to telephony. Earlier you have a mobile was a keyboard mobile, has come to now is smart mobile. The same all meters are getting converted into a smart meter, and after 5 or 7 years you will find that there is no electronic meters, only smart meters are there. Now, the government plan is to change all meters by financial year 25. They have come out with a scheme. They have an outlay of around 3 lakh crores. They themselves are central government is contributing around 97,000 crores on that. Already 10 crores smart meters order have been placed and they are getting changed. The target is to change all meters by financial year 25. So once all consumers have smart meters, then the normal meter will not exist in that case.
So, what is the number of the total smart meters that we need? How many meters are there already in the country that would be replaced?
So if you just divide population by 4 or 4.5, then each household is around 25 crores. That's how it goes. So 25 crores meters to be replaced in that way.
And do you think we are on track to achieve that guidance or the targets that have been set by the government? As you said, 10 crore orders have been placed so far.
Yes,
So we are still halfway to go.
we still have it, but the way we are finding it has picked up in last 6 months. The orders have been placed. The big corporates are there who are installing these meters, like the Tata Power installing these meters in Chhattisgarh. We are installing around 18 lakh meters in Raipur and nearby cities. There are other big players also there. Government push is also there. The financial condition of distribution utilities also ask for speedy implementation of this project. There could be a delay of a year or so, but I'm very sure we will be able to achieve this target.
Okay. So when you spoke about you are installing it in a lot of states, which are the biggest markets that you're seeing right now where there is a lot of interest? And where do you think we are lacking in terms of smart meter installations?
So one is in terms of market, entire India is market. Everyone has to have a smart meter. That's a mandate, and there is a financial assistance from the central government. State governments are also pushing for this. So each meter has to be replaced. So for that, the market is the Indian market. There is a good speed I am finding in few states. Bihar was the one who was doing very well, is still doing very well, I would say. There are few pilots initially done in MP, Indore, proved that the smart meter is really a use case for India. Then in our case, if you see, we have started installing it in Mumbai. Uh, we have we have installed in Delhi also around 3 lakh smart meters. In Odisha, we have 4 distribution company. Last year, we have started, each discom now have around 1 lakh smart meters. So in last 1 year, if you see the way it has picked up, I think in 3 4 years, the all meters will be smart meters.
Okay, 3 to 4 years. Are there any states, would you say, that they are lacking right now and you would like to go ahead and market it a lot more for them to get it up to speed?
No, I think all states are pushing, and thanks to, in fact, I would say the central government push, the way it is getting monitored by Ministry of Power. State governments also realizing that the distribution company have to be sustainable because they becomes finally a burden on state budget also because the state has to provide them financial support. I think it's a good momentum it has picked up.
Okay, that's good to know. So, what would the actual amount of the market size be? I'm also asking because it would interest people who are looking at the companies which are into smart meters, right? So, the total market that is addressable market for you, and how much is Tata Power catering there?
See, the each meter costs you around 3,000. 3,000 for a single phase meter. It's around 5,000 for three phase meter. Then the 25 crores meters to be replaced, and the government condition is someone who is replacing this meter will also have to maintain it for next 8 years or so. So that maintenance of that, the communication cost of this has almost become three times. So each meter, if you see that period of 8 years of maintenance is around 10,000 rupees. So you multiplied it with the number of meters, then the 10,000 rupees, and that becomes a huge size. It's a 3 lakh crore, is, I said, is the outlay which is the government of India itself. So it's a huge market for everyone. That is why we have new players are coming up, setting up smart metering factories also. The new big corporates have started taking projects. Tata Power was never earlier installing these meters in other states. We were catering to our own discoms only. Now we have entered into this venture. We have taken Chhattisgarh is our first project which we are installing, and we will focus on states where we have less execution risk, because sometimes the consumer opposes smart meters, right? The installation of smart meters. So where the execution risk is less, we are also planning to take projects where number of meters which are to be installed is around 15-20 lakhs, not more than that, because the time period which government has given is 2 years time period, and it becomes very difficult to install more than 15-20 lakh meters in 2 years time. So we are quite cautious on that. Where the execution risk is not there, the Tata Power will be installing these meters. But to cost point on Raipur, we have installing around 15 lakh meters. The project cost is around 1,600 crores. So you can imagine the cost, kind of market it has.
It's a huge market, and not
Huge
only from
market.
sustainability perspective, even when we talk about the market opportunity for investors, they are really gung-ho about this one, and
Absolutely.
that's why I was very interested in asking
Absolutely.
you the addressable market.
Right.
If you're talking about 3 lakh crores coming in from the government itself in terms of an expenditure, that means there is a huge opportunity here.
Absolutely.
I would briefly like to go back to the bill payment as well, because I was reading a CEEW study, which is the Center of Energy Council. They spoke about how bill payments with smart meters are more sustainable, more efficient. How does that work? They basically quoted that bill payment is better via smart meters due to an app availability. So, are you saying people are paying it on time? Does that happen?
So one, thanks to the government initiatives on UPI, that this country has now virtually become digital savvy on payments. You see the kind of payment avenues everyone has. Smart metering gives you data to a distribution company, and which he send it to consumer in his consumer app. So what smart metering is, in fact, making consumer more aware of his bill amount, and he start trusting my bill amount is correct. And now he has a consumer app also. In that app you have all the payment options. So definitely I would say it will improve digital payments. The collection efficiency of distribution companies will increase. But otherwise also, if you don't have smart meters, most of the distribution companies now have come out with their own consumer app also, and they provide them data. So let's say in Mumbai we have smart meter for around 1 lakh consumer. We don't have smart meters for around 6 lakh consumer. But when we go to when we see digital payment by consumers, then we have more than 90% payments coming from digital means only. So the consumer who is aware of digital payment normally pay by digital means only, because that's much hassle free.
It's easier. You don't have to
It's
stand in lines and look
absolutely
at the bills and make that payment.
absolutely
So when I said it's a B2C opportunity and consumers are, going ahead and still taking up this particular product, the list also said that Bihar is also contributing a lot to this. What is working differently here? Because usually you would see that generally some people would be reluctant to take up a new product, right? We do see that in some of the states. Is that more push from marketing side, or is it the government push, or is it a mix of both?
So Bihar had a problem uh, of high losses. The technical and commercial losses were very high 3 years back, and the government has a problem in terms of financing these distribution companies. And they installing smart meters. They find it's a solution, and I would say predominantly it's a government push, because replacing smart meters requires government support in terms of law and order also. the consumer resistance would be there. Someone who is stealing power doesn't want smart meters to be installed, right? So there was a push from discom higher ups. There was push from state government. We sent a team from Odisha when we took over Odisha, and we were planning to install smart meters, particularly in rural area. We sent a team to study, and we were very satisfied the way they have installed smart meters. In fact, they formed a good IT team who manages this data so well, which we don't find in many distribution companies in India. So it's a definitely state push. The government, the state discoms management also uh, understood the importance of this, and they found that this is the only way they can make their discom sustainable. So I think that made a difference. If the discom management find it value in this, then it becomes easy to implement.
So, can we easily say power theft is not possible if there are smart meters, or that reduces? Is that a good summary to make of this conversation?
Mm, Not really, actually. See, smart meters gives you meter data. Now, this meter data, if you analyze, you can find consumer is stealing power or not. So that power is now with discoms to know who is stealing power, who is not stealing power. But let's say someone is using a smart meter, but he has a wire connected in parallel. Then the smart meter is not recording that energy. So you will not be knowing whether the theft is there or not. But if you aggregate this meters data, then calculate it with input data, then it gives you a good analysis in terms of where to attack theft, and that is how you control it. So if you ask me, smart meter reduces AT&C losses or not? Yes, if this data is used properly by distribution companies, they can definitely improve their losses.
So, is this the only, is this one of the benefits for power companies, or are there other benefits for power companies as well, apart from the theft that gets stopped? What are the other benefits that you yourself are seeing in that smart
Many,
grid? Yeah.
many. In fact, if you see, smart metering started not in India, it started in the western part of the world, and their loss level are around 3 or 4%. So the
And India, it is?
India, it is average is 15%. 3 years back it was 23%. Actually, it should be around 7-8%, right? So in India, we are installing smart meters to reduce losses. The world over, the smart meters were not installed to reduce losses, because they were installed to have more other benefits, I would say. Now, what are the other benefits? One is, if you are having a smart meter and you don't have electricity, the smart meter gives a signal that the consumer is not having electricity. So you need not to call center and raise a
And look at your
complaint,
neighbor.
look at your neighbor or raise a complaint that whether I don't have power, please attend. The distribution company already knows it very well. Second, you are having now the consumption pattern of your consumers. You can forecast your demand much better. You know the consumption pattern of these smart meters. You can optimize your entire investment, because some of your distribution assets may be less loaded, because the consumer data is suggesting that. So if you use this data very well, you can reduce your capex. You are definitely reducing your opex, operational cost, because the meter reader is not going for taking meter reading. That was a cost. If the consumer was not paying, you used to disconnect. You used to send a crew to disconnect that meter. So that cost is saved. Reduces your capex, reduces your opex. Uh, Optimize your assets. So these are then the outage management system, how it improves the outage time that way. These are the benefits why smart meters was used in western part. We have another problem of losses, so it's a good that it's addressing those problems also, and this problem also. It's good for India.
And so, it's a good combination
it's
that
a
you're saying.
it's a very good combination, but it has one problem. The problem is, right now you have a person who goes to take meter reading. So you have a kind of a surveillance on that customer. Once you have a smart meter, you need not to go. So unless you analyze his data well, you may not be able to know that whether he is stealing power or not. Earlier, when you were visiting and he was having some parallel connection, you can see he has a parallel connection, and you can stop that theft. Now you have to analyze this data and use that analytics for a better monitoring purpose.
because you're here, Mr. Banga, I have to ask you, how did people steal power? Like, is it that easy for people to do? They would just connect a wire and then get extra power. How did that happen?
So there is a mafia who is involved in this. So someone who wants to reduce his electricity bill, he will connect such persons. These persons are there,
Oh,
and these persons are there is an industry. In fact, we say in distribution company there is an industry who thrive on this, because they come out with new electronic devices. They have invented remote which they can install in meters, and meter becomes slow. Then in a rural area, it's a normal, a conventional way of hooking. So they have a kind of hook which in night time they will just put it on the wire and start taking electricity. So there are different ways, and there are other ways also where the meter reading is not correctly captured. So there is a connivance with meter reader himself. He will note less reading as compared to what is the consumption of that consumer. So there are different ways of stealing power in that way.
as we say in India, there's too much jugaad, right? So we
It's a
can
jugaad.
we can go
Absolutely.
ahead and do everything and anything which is possible under the sun. So are we seeing those losses come down since the time smart meters have come in? Like on industry level, of course, we still have a big market to see.
Results are very encouraging, particularly Bihar. I'm very impressed the way losses are coming down there. Other places also, we have used in Delhi, and we find it has an impact on reduction in losses.
Okay. So what is the capex which is required, which Tata Power is putting in here? And do you think there will be enough opportunity available in terms of maintenance as well? Because that is also something that you said will be an additional cost. How often will you have to do that?
So in terms of maintenance cost, uh, meters life is normally 10 years. That is how these are described. And every month the communication cost is around 10 to 15 rupees, because it's just throwing data. There is not much in that. And that those that cost is to all telecom service provider. If your meter is communicating on GPRS, there are other ways also of communicating, but let's, for simplicity, we consider that the meter is connected on normal 5G or GPRS or 4G. Then the every month cost is around 10 to 15 rupees, not more than that. In terms of capex, as I mentioned, every new meter which you install is cost you around 4 to 5,000 rupees, which includes meter box, and the cable which is to be installed. So it costs you around 5,000. We change it. We change around 1 lakh meters. So that's the cost you can multiply on that.
So this is a win-win for a customer in any way. So they shouldn't be worried about putting a smart meter in their house, right?
Absolutely not. They should in fact welcome this, because it gives you a complete visibility on your energy consumption. And the apprehension, if you have, which many have, in fact, a meter is running slow or my meter is running fast, you can see that when you are not at home, there is no consumption. So you are very sure my meter is okay. Or when you are using your AC more, you can see your consumption is going up in summer, it is going down in winter, and you are pretty convinced that okay, whatever the energy I am consuming is the right assessment.
During COVID, all our monthly bills have spiked up,
Should
and
have.
used to worry where is this coming from and what just suddenly happened. So I think that was also a great way of understanding our consumption patterns. So
Absolutely.
usually we are not at home, but at that point in time, it happened. In all this, what would you think? You've seen the sector for such a long time. Do you think there are any risks to adaptability here, or something that we should be mindful of in order to ensure that we reach the target of that 2 crore meters, or 25 crore meters by 2025?
I'm expecting some resistance from customer side who are not honest customers. But otherwise, for a normal customer, whether it's electronic meter or smart meter, he's only worried about whether the meter consumption is right or not. But if the smart meter is giving me 10 more benefits, that I need not to call a call center, I can see my energy consumption, I will welcome it. And that is what I am expecting. That is what our experience has been actually in Odisha, Delhi, and Mumbai. There is not much resistance, except resistance where the people are not honest in terms of their energy consumption. They are the one who are resisting.
Okay, so is the government allocating areas to companies, or is it a bid that is going through? How are you looking at
Oh, so
markets?
it's a standard bidding document which has been now finalized by Ministry of Power, and that standard bidding document is used by all states. Right now, I would say more or less all states have come out with their RFPs. There are 10 crore meters, as I mentioned, means around 40 crores population. And to that level is already the contract has been awarded. Around, I saw around 2 crores contracts are in market which are going on. So more than 50% already orders have been placed in that way. The balance would be placed in 6 or 8 months' time. And
So,
then it's implementation.
okay, so the how much time does it take from order to execution to putting it in a person's house
Government
home?
wants this to be done in 2 years' time. And then they say that whosoever is installing has again around 8 years' time to manage this entire infrastructure. And that's really good because most of the distribution companies don't have capability of managing such huge system. So government wants sustainability here. So they said you when you are installing smart meters, someone who is coming to install smart meters should also manage it for 8 years, the entire infrastructure of communication, the IT system, meters. And in during this period, the distribution companies will develop capabilities. And after 8 years, you transition it to distribution companies, and that is how you will ensure
So there's a
sustainability.
lot of interest in smart meters from private company like yours, or you're seeing some public companies participating here as well?
Both private companies, big corporates are there, we are there, and then the PGCIL is there, the government company is there, the REC is very active, PFC is of course coordinating this also. So there is an interest from, I would say, the good corporates.
So that's a good thing to know. And
Yeah.
at the same time, if there's as much interest from the customers and the consumers, so it would be a great scheme. Mr. Banga, it was such a pleasure speaking with you today and understanding the A to Z of smart meters. We've heard so much about it. And I'm saying right now that I heard so much about electricity theft. I would just wonder, look, kaise chori kar sakte? It's not something that you can just go ahead and, steal. But thank you for clearing all of that
My
and
pleasure.
hope to be speaking to you very soon. So thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Sana.
Okay, all right. With that, we'll take your leave on this edition of Climate Clock Podcast. But do stay tuned for more updates and do write to us on the topics that you would like to understand. We'll get an expert on the show and answer all your questions. Thanks a lot for tuning in today.